Hello and welcome to the stream. I am the company's expert, the company's expert. And welcome to the second attempt or the second time ever at doing this thing I'm calling Let's Talk Business. We're going to talk about success. And if you are wanting to find success, at least financially, in terms of employment, in terms of your livelihood, you already have the advantage over most people because you are here, you are doing self-improvement, and you're trying to learn. So congratulations, you are already on your way. Let's see here. We've already got people asking questions. Awesome. So thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me. I see we've got 7 people here. If you see the chat, say who you are, say where you're listening from. I always find that interesting. I really don't have too much of a plan today. I wrote down a few topics that I was going to talk about in the absence of getting questions. And this is what I wrote down. Okay, we're going to talk about good traits of people, good career skills to have. We're going to talk about inflation. You know what? I might even start off with that because that's kind of a hot topic right now. Promising job fields. I got a question from somebody who was leaving a comment on one of my videos, and some people leave intelligent questions, and I read all questions, but I can't always respond to them because, especially if it's a long thing to have to answer, it's just not really practical to type out a big long answer. So that's what the live streams are for. But someone was asking about promising job fields, and also something I thought would be cool to talk about is the role of a CFO in a company. If ever you've wondered, or you have aspirations of going into accounting or finance or working in financial services, things like this, I can at least share with you some of my experiences dealing with CFOs. And there you go. But first, some public service announcements right off the bat. You are watching this on my main channel, The Company's Expert. This stream and all my live streams will be archived on my second channel, The Company's Expert 2. So if you haven't checked out my second channel, go there and subscribe right now. And that's where this stream is going to end up. Also, I usually say this. I suspect it won't be a problem today, but if there's too many questions and I don't get to yours, just do a super chat and I will prioritize all super chats. I will see all super chats and I will give a proper answer to all super chats. I suspect today that we won't have that problem. And also, a shout out to all my members. I had one new member this week. Members, you click the join button on my channel and you can join my channel and you get a free video, an extra members only video from me every week. So if you're interested in that, great. So there's a question that somebody left a question before the chat actually began. This is from Ray. Ray says, when applying for a job and ask you how many years should you tell the true number? For example, I have experience in my industry of 30 years. Is that a negative or a plus for filling in a position? Well, it depends on the position. That's the first thing. It also depends on who you're talking to. Okay, if you're talking to a 65-year-old, chances are you saying you have 30 years experience in something is not going to be a problem. Okay, if you're talking to a 21-year-old, then maybe it won't have the value that perhaps it should when you mention that, and could potentially count against you depending on the circumstances. So it can be good or it could not be good depending on what you're trying to do. Who do we have here? We've got Min, if I'm saying that right. I'm Alex, studying an MBA in Collège du Paris. Love your channel, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's very nice of you to say. I assume that is in Paris, right? La Collège du Paris. Love your channel. That's very, very nice of you to say that. I always am flattered when people say that. It's nice to know that you guys care enough to be here, and I'm going to try and help you as much as I possibly can. So here we go. Radu says, hello, Bill. I'm a little confused as to the role of the Chief Information Officer. Could you please explain this role in a bit more detail? Sure. Yes. You know what? Let's start with that. So Chief Information Officer, CIO. Okay, first thing I got to say is that there are no hard and fast rules. There are no regulations that, require people to have certain job titles for a certain function in most countries for most roles. So something like a CIO, Chief Information Officer, it's going to vary a little depending on industry and the size of company, but basically the Chief Information Officer, roughly speaking, is the head of IT, okay? Information technology. Now, sometimes they break that down to a Chief Technical Officer. There'll be a CTO, a Chief Technical Officer, and a Chief Information Officer, in which case the technical officer would deal more with hardware and the IT system itself, and then the CIO, Chief Information Officer, would concern themselves more with business intelligence, okay? So basically what that is learning about your customers, learning about changes in the industry, learning about competitors, learning about your market, okay? And all the other players and stakeholders in your industry. It's the information. What information are you looking for? What data are you looking for? That's the primary function of the Chief Information Officer, especially when they have another position called Chief Technical Officer. So that's what that is. A lot of companies are just going to have a CIO, and that'll be the head of IT. So they deal with running the IT department, and usually that means like all the servers, if you have internal servers, internal applications, if you have various business systems, okay, and the software packages and all the people to maintain them and to use them and training, that kind of stuff. And also the purpose of all that is to supply information and to assist the business. It is basically a strategic tool. Okay, it can help you do your business. It can help you gain a competitive advantage over your competitors if used correctly. When it's not used correctly, they regard it as a cost center. Okay, it's something that's a necessary evil. We've got to have computers. We've got to have a computer system. So we need someone to manage that. Okay, so the role can change. And obviously, if you're in a technical field, like if you're in a if you're in software development or any kind of high-tech field, the role of the CIO is going to expand, to encompass innovation and things like this. So hopefully that makes sense. I've seen startups, so what they do is they hire one person that just works on IT, and they become the CIO. The company might have 6 people in it, and one of them is the Chief Information Officer. You can sort of make up these titles. But basically, it means the head IT person. So there you go. Now, I know something that a lot of people are wondering about these days is inflation. Inflation. And a lot of people are getting caught in a situation where inflation is on the rise, and it's at a higher rate than the annual cost of living. So this means that your compensation that you're getting, your pay, is gradually losing its buying power, okay, because inflation is going up. You have more or less a fixed compensation, fixed pay, okay, fixed salary or fixed pay rate. And this is a concern because the prices of things that you need to buy, whether it's food or rent or anything else, luxury items, they're going up. The prices are going up, and the rate at which they're going up is faster than your pay is going up. So this is a big concern for a lot of people right now. And this is one of the risks of having fixed compensation. Now, most people that have traditional jobs have fixed compensation. You get like a certain salary every year, and it might go up a little bit, but in times like these, the inflation rate is going up faster than your compensation is, which is an undesirable situation. Now, one of the things, okay, I'm going to throw this out there. This will interest some people, but maybe not others, is that if you are looking to do a side hustle or you're looking to be an entrepreneur and have your own company, or you're looking to go into franchising or, whatever form that might take, small business, having your own company. One of the advantages is that a lot of times your compensation is not fixed. It's variable. The better job you do, the more money you make, and your compensation goes up. Now, yes, it's risky. If you do a bad job or business is bad, you make less money, okay? But that's what variable compensation means. But one of the advantages that's not often talked about is that if you have a side hustle, okay, a lot of times you have a variable income, and that insulates you against the effects of inflation a lot of times. Because just as your expenses are going up in price, because prices are rising, your prices to your customers are also going up to keep pace with inflation. So in effect, you are insulated against the effects of inflation. So if you're ever considering to have having a side hustle, or you're maybe just interested in learning about how to do that, that's one of the advantages that's not often talked about. So I just thought I would throw that out. Right, now we got more. So this is Min again, says, can university rankings affect job careers? Yes, they can. Yes, they can. My university is really good, but not like Oxford, MIT. Thank you, sir. Yes, listen, I am not an expert academic that knows all the details of that, but yes, it can have an effect, and it does have an effect. For example, if you got an MBA from Harvard, that would have a lot of name recognition. It would have a very good reputation, and people may hire you simply on the strength of that, of the brand or reputation of the educational qualification. So that's definitely a thing. However, this can be inflated. People talk about it like it's a much bigger deal than it actually is. And what I mean is that if you have a credential from, say, Harvard, something that's internationally recognized, there's many such institutions around the world, that does carry weight. However, a lot of, how can I put this? A lot of schools will advertise, will do marketing, will do sales, and they'll try and convince you to take to pay them and get education from them, to sign up and take one of their certificates or their degrees. Okay, so they're actively out there trying to sell their services, and in the process of that, they'll say a lot of things. They'll say like, "Oh, we're recognized the world over. If you get one of our educational qualifications, that'll be recognized. People will place a lot of value in the name of the institution, and that'll be like a sort of international ticket. You can go anywhere and people will give you a job." A lot of that is incorrect. It's lies. They're trying to overinflate and sell, overinflate their value and sell themselves on this intangible brand equity, and it's just not true. I mean, a few institutions like Harvard, like Cambridge or Oxford in the UK, they are well regarded and they're known, but it's only those handful that are really known, in my experience. That's what I've personally observed. Okay, now here's what you can do. Okay, because everybody's going to have their own specific question. Is this school good? Is this qualification from this school good? Okay, everybody's going to be wondering, a specific thing. Here's what you can do to really find out. There's two things you can do. And they're quite simple. Number one is get on LinkedIn, okay? Learn LinkedIn, make a profile for yourself and get on there. It's an incredible tool. What you can do is, if you have an idea of the job you're going for, okay, I want to have this job in this type of company, okay, specifically. Okay, let's say your ambition is to become a chief information officer at a mid-sized company like, I don't know, and specific companies. If you go on LinkedIn, okay, and you jump through a few hoops, you can search for, say, that exact company or companies like it. You could look for that position, that job, okay, or positions like it. And you can look at the individuals in those jobs and you can see what they have, okay? Now, if you're wondering if a degree from, say, Cambridge or Oxford, say Cambridge, okay, like a technical degree, if you're wondering, is it essential if I want to get a certain job, okay, go on LinkedIn. Look at all the people that you can find in that job by doing a people search, looking by position, and you essentially can see their resume. So you can see if they have that degree or another degree. And if you look at them and they all have a degree from Cambridge, that would highly suggest that that degree from Cambridge is very useful in securing that kind of job, okay? If they all have different degrees or some of them don't have degrees, that tells you something else. That tells you that maybe a degree from Cambridge isn't absolutely essential to get that type of job. So these are things, this is a research you can do that's very easy to do. It doesn't cost you really anything. It doesn't take much time. But any specific question like that you're wondering, that's a great way to get an answer for it, for a specific question. Okay, that's a great tool. The other thing you can do, and I'll say this just for completion, is learn how to do informational interviews. So if you're wanting to know if a specific career or is good for you, or you want to take a certain educational qualification, you want to get a bachelor degree in, I don't know, in accounting or in food science or something, and you're wondering how useful is that? How does it work? And, what types of jobs does it allow me to then move into? Okay. What would be really great to be able to do is learn how to do an informational interview. So you can connect like with things like LinkedIn, tools like LinkedIn. You can connect with somebody who has a degree in food science or whatever it is you're wondering about, and you can contact them and you can just have a discussion with them and just say, hey, I'd love to be able to ask you a few questions. I'm considering getting a degree in food science like you have, and I was just wondering if I could ask you a few questions related to its value to your career. And what'll happen is when you throw this out, okay, you say you don't just contact one person, you contact several people. A lot of people won't respond, but some people will. Okay, maybe one or two people, or if you go to like 40 people, it'll be usually several people will respond. They'll say sure, and you can have several phone calls or meetings with people that have this certification, and you can ask them whatever you want, and they can give you the real lowdown and say this is what doors it opened up for me. Or this is my opinion on it, or this would be my recommendation for somebody considering taking this degree now, and things like this, right? So these are two great skills, okay? Being able to do research on LinkedIn, okay, to do with what qualifications get you what job, that's very useful. And also the sort of prize is to be able to do an informational interview with somebody. You go one step further. Seeing this individual, you then contact them and have a meeting or an interaction with them. And you can ask whatever questions you want, and you get the information right from the source, from people that have this, people that are in these jobs, people that have these qualifications. But that's a very intelligent question. Thank you for asking that. So Radu says, it depends on the company. Do they want a high-end Maserati? Is that? Or are they perfectly fine with a Honda Civic? I see. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It depends what people's wants, needs, and expectations are. Aj, if I'm saying that right. Aj says, I currently am studying a B.Tech in computer science engineering in IIIT in India. Don't use acronyms, okay? Like as a general rule, I'm not familiar with all the acronyms in the world, so just spell it out, especially talking to me. Like, I assume that's some form of engineering. Like, is that information technology, industrial information technology? In India, should I pursue a higher degree in CS? What, computer science is that? Or do an MBA? I kind of like both the fields. Or should I do the job directly? Well, look, I mean, that depends on what the requirements of the job are. If you can get the job without any of those degrees, then my question to you would be, why would you want to not take the job, instead go back and do more school? It depends what your goals are. I can't tell you what you need to do unless I know what your goals are. You see, both of the options you presented are valid depending on what your goals are. Okay? But listen, computer science is a good thing to know. Okay, there's definitely some career options there. And an MBA is useful when you tack it on to other technical skills. Okay? So yes. Yes. Now, I mean, some people, they have that combination of skills, and their ambition is to do a startup company, do like an IT startup company. Okay? In which case, I would say that an MBA is definitely useful. If you want to make money, the moment the word money comes into the equation, that's business. You now need to know business. Okay? So, yes, an MBA would be very useful in that context. Obviously, I'm a little biased. I mean, I'm a business guy, and I consider an MBA very valuable. I mean, an MBA is just, it's like the gold standard for how to manage something, right? How to be in business, how to make money. It isn't the be all end all. It doesn't mean that you're a brilliant, rainmaker is the term. But it's the sort of default thing you can do that covers all the basics. It gives you a lot of intermediate stuff too. And it's a great platform on which to sort of jump off to go into whatever type of career you're wanting. Okay? The art of CAS. CAS. That is an art. Would you agree that experience is more than just having a degree? Well, yes, by definition, experience is usually referring to work experience. So by definition, yes, it is not having a degree. Experience is usually having job experience. Okay, so they're two different things. The art of CAS. On what you said on overinflating credibility in a university, both are definitely valuable, but it still looks like networking is king in the business landscape. Listen, networking is a skill. Okay? Like public speaking, or being able to debate somebody, to argue, and to make an argument. Those are all skills. They are very powerful skills. They generally speaking, they will help your career go further. Okay? You add those on a great career, a great sort of pattern is to get some technical skills in some area. Okay? Like someone mentioned engineering, that's a great start. Maybe accounting, maybe computer science, whatever. And then you add on the business skills and the personal skills, okay, like networking. How to talk to people, how to connect with people, how to approach somebody to be able to get a question answered or to explore a possible relationship, right? Like a business relationship. Okay. That's a skill like any other. It has nothing to do with your personality type. It has nothing to do with how good you are dealing with people. These are all acquired skills. And generally, as we get older, we learn and we fill in these gaps. Okay. If you have gaps in your skills, and maybe you're not good talking to people or you have social anxiety, generally speaking, as we get older, we tend to fill in those. We tend to improve in our weak areas. Okay. some people more than others, depending on how much you work on it. Okay. And networking is just a skill like any other. You could be like me, you could be a complete introvert and still not only be able to do networking, but you could build your livelihood on networking, which is what I've done. I had a corporate career and then I sort of left it all behind. I made a clean break and I became a consultant, and I've done teaching, I do my YouTube channel, just whatever I feel like. And I've spun mainly the networking skills into building a business and having a livelihood. And it's a lot easier than people think it is. People are quite intimidated by it. In the same way that people are intimidated by public speaking skills. For those people, if you realized how little there was to it, you would be so surprised. Especially if you've got, degrees in engineering or accounting or computer science. I mean, this stuff is absolute child's play compared to that. Okay? So, that's the reality of it. This is why learning, continuous learning is great, because if you have a solid technical foundation, you can easily tack on these things afterwards, or concurrently if you want. Where did I leave off here? I've got to start highlighting these things. You both are definitely valuable, but it still looks like networking is the king. Yeah. That's true. It's like, think about it this way. It's almost like sales skills, okay? You could be the most brilliant technical person ever, okay? You have a degree in computer science. You could have created your own app that will change the world, okay? It's this incredible thing, right? But if you can't tell anyone about it, you can't get the word out, how do you succeed if no one knows about it, right? So these sort of personal skills, they enable your technical skills a lot of the time. Hi from Italy. Thanks for your work. Thank you, Emmanuel. It's very, very kind of you. Capital of Italy is Rome. Emil says, do staying long in an area or company sever your chances to switch in the future? Do you know if ageism applies even with people born on the same decade? Look, people are weird, okay? And generally you don't see people who are like within 10 years of each other experiencing ageism. But everything happens sometimes, okay? I'm sure you can find cases of this. Even though it sounds really weird, I'm sure you can find it, okay? Generally, in my experience, you don't really see that. If you're young and you're worried about ageism, go to a place where they hire young people and the people in charge are young. If you're old and you're worried about ageism, go to a place where a lot of old people work and the people running the place are old. That's kind of how you get rid of that, Staying long, look, attitudes have changed about that over the years. Staying in a place for a long time used to be the norm. If you go back to the 70s and the 80s, that was kind of how companies operated. You were expected to be there for many, many years. Most people were. And then ever since the 70s, the 1970s, I believe, the average length that people have been staying in a job has gone down, like year over year. It gets shorter and shorter and shorter. People are moving around more and more and more, right? So now, depending on what industry you're in, maybe it might limit your chances. I'm not sure. It depends how people look at it, how the hiring managers see it. And you get all kinds of opinions out there, but not necessarily is what I would say. It can, but not necessarily. Okay. Once again, if you want to know the answer, if you have an ambition to be in a certain position, okay, a certain job, that's what you're gunning for. Like I said earlier in the stream, get on LinkedIn, do a search for people in that job in your hometown or region, and look at the length of time they've been in that job. They'll have that on there, okay? So you can see if they've all been in that job for an average of 2 years or less, that tells you something. If you do find people that have been there for 30 years in that role, that tells you something else. So how likely it is you can get a direct answer for you just by doing that type of research. Okay, Indian Institute of Information Technology. Yes. Okay, thank you, Aj. Yeah, as a general rule for for communication, if you're going to use an acronym that there's a chance somebody might not know, spell it out. Like you can give the acronym, put it in parentheses, and then write the term after it. Spell it out in a long form. And that's sort of a thing you can do to enhance your communication skills. There'll be less chance of people not knowing what you're talking about. Alex is here. Alex says, what should I do if I'm a senior level IT with 15 years experience and a degree? I don't know. What should you do? What's your goal? Like, if your goal is to stay where you are, nothing at all. Keep doing what you're doing. If your goal is to be in a different position, you need to specify what that is. You see, like IT is, it's a whole universe of different things. I mean, on the one hand, you could be a systems admin in a large organization, like a global organization, or you could be in a small startup. It's absolutely night and day. You could be on the development side, and you're doing software development. So you really have to be more specific, and you also have to know what your goals are. If you don't know what your goals are, that's where I would start to do some of that research. Go out and see what people are doing in different organizations. That's probably going to be the theme of today's stream, is just using LinkedIn as a research tool to get information, specific information on whatever career question you have. The usefulness of a particular education, the qualifications or experience necessary to do certain jobs, or at least what you see other people doing. Just because that's what you see doesn't mean that's what's needed, right? It could be just that's what people think is needed. There's two different things. Oh, I recognize EGR NHL. You see, NHL to me means National Hockey League. When I was a kid, I loved watching hockey on TV, the NHL. Before they brought in all the rules that kind of tamed the game down, The game wasn't over until, Mark Messier sucker punched somebody in the back of the head, and Ron Hextall lost his temper and broke his goalie stick over somebody's kneecap. Those were the good old days. It's a different game now. EGR NHL says, should I be concerned about being paid a high amount of money at my current job? If planning to move to look for a job in the next 2 to 3 years, I'm worried I will be too pricey to be considered. Should I be concerned about being paid a high amount? I would never be concerned about being paid a high amount. First of all, your compensation is your own business. I don't care what country you're in. I don't care if you're in India. Your compensation is your affair. And to my knowledge, I don't know of any country in the world where, I don't know everything, obviously, but I'm not aware of any country that sort of publicizes your compensation for employers to see, whether you want them to or not. So the only question is, would you be satisfied making less money than that in a different job? That's something you have to decide for yourself. But being paid more now, are you worried about if that will sort of restrict your options in the future? It shouldn't. The only way it would restrict your options is you decide that you don't want to take a pay reduction to get a different job. Okay? So that's the only way that I can see it would restrict you. And when in doubt, if you have the opportunity, just take a job that makes more money. It's kind of what I would do, unless there was mitigating circumstances. That's how I kind of see that. Leonardo says, "Hi, Bill." Hey, Leonardo. I'm glad you're here. Brian, sir, in my initial interview, I said my salary range, and it is lower than the base pay that they usually give that I recently found out. What should I do? Well, see, now we're heading back into the whole how to pass a job interview thing. That's not really what this stream is about. We're talking about more business type topics. So I believe I have a video that covers something very similar to that. Either this week, it's coming out either this week or early next week. So just stick around for that. Leonardo says, "I got hired. Thanks." That's great news, Leonardo. Congratulations. Hey, you did, like I say, you did it yourself. Okay. So you deserve the credit. So way to go. I'm glad to hear. Alex says, "I'm moving to cloud technologies." Yeah, that's been sort of the big growth area in IT for 20 years. Something like that. Ever since 2003, I know for sure. I want to be a cloud services director. Yeah. Well, look, if you want to be a cloud services director, do the thing I was talking about. Get on LinkedIn, do a people search for cloud services director. And when it gives you results of all these individuals, and if there's enough, you can refine it to your hometown even. Look what they have. How many years experience? What qualifications? Now, the thing it's not going to tell you is what personal traits they have, okay? Maybe these people are great, I don't know, maybe they're great salespeople. I don't know. Maybe they're great, very empathetic bosses, okay? They have advanced people skills. They have a very high emotional intelligence, all that kind of stuff. It's not going to tell you that, but it will give you sort of their resume so you can at least see on paper what has qualified them, okay? The other thing it won't tell you is if there was sort of a networking connection there, right? That's not going to be disclosed. But it will give you a lot of information as to, certainly on your resume, what things would, generally speaking, qualify you, okay? So it's good that you have that specific goal in mind. Now you just got to do some research on it. Everyone is moving to the cloud. Yep, that's true. Well, that's what businesses like to believe. And 90% they're true, because that is the way the world is going. However, the problem, at least several years ago, the problem with the cloud is that you have to trust your cloud services provider. It's like me saying, okay, I want you to trust me with your credit card. You have to give me your credit card number, give me your birth certificate, give me all your confidential information about your family, all that stuff. I want you to safeguard that with me. Okay? That's been the challenge of cloud services for the last 20 years since it started. Companies want to persuade their clients, usually businesses, to trust them with the crown jewels, basically. And, trust is not given, trust is earned. So it's very hard to sort of just turn it all over to somebody. Because if something were to go wrong, right, they get hacked or they lose it, or it's not available when you need it. That's not really that risky for them. but it's lethal for you, right? That's the issue. It's sort of asymmetrical risk. So that's going to be the challenge with cloud services. And the more we go into the future, with every, I don't want to call it scandal, but incident in the news, that gets further away from happening for a lot of businesses. So although a lot of things are moving to the cloud, some of the critical stuff will still be retained, as far as I can see, for the foreseeable future. Okay. I'm not really going to talk about salary expectations. That's for my other stream, for the how to get a job stream. Paco says, I overcame a 12-year work gap. How awesome am I? That's awesome. Yeah, that's good. What were you doing for 12 years? Were you like, were you living off the grid or something? That's the interesting part to me. Brian says, do you think that they will take advantage of the salary range which I give and not pay the usual amount that they pay? Once again, like, we're not talking how to get a job today. Sorry. I've done this week, I've done 3 videos on salary expectations, and I had a stream 2 weeks ago. I think that was like 2 hours of just talking salary, and I've got a lot of videos on my channel about that. So check those out. Do you like cat? I don't know. I've never had cat. Like to eat, I assume. I don't know. Does it taste like chicken? I'm not sure. Okay, Weather Dude. Oh, that's an awesome name. The Weather Dude. When negotiating, here we go. When negotiating an offer of employment, is the start date negotiable? Yes, of course it is. Now, whether they will budge on that is another matter. No, there's no part of it that's technically non-negotiable. You can negotiate anything. Now, whether they will agree to negotiate something is another matter. Min, again, sir, my question is, what kind of business degree is essential or common in animation industry? You got me there. I'm not in the animation industry myself. Thank you for explaining. This would be yet another example of how to use that technique to research. Like, that's a specific question. Okay. Look up companies that are in the animation business. Okay. And look up specific job titles like animation director or like whatever, designer, like whatever the job is. Look those up and see what those people have that has qualified them to be in that job. You can see essentially their resume. Okay, so that would be a great question to research on LinkedIn. Okay, familiarize yourself with LinkedIn. It's an incredibly powerful tool. Any kind of career question you could ever have, you can get hard data to answer your question. You can look up other people's profiles, people that are in the job that you're interested in, and you can see what they have. And not just one person, many people. And if they all have the same thing, that probably means that thing is pretty important. If they all don't have that thing, that suggests that it's not really essential, right? So that's kind of how it goes. Bill, how do you know that you're doing the job the right way? Oh, talk to your boss. Approach your boss, like if you have a supervisor or whoever your superior is, like your boss. If you're their direct report, you report to them. Just go up to them and say, like, pick your moment. Don't do it when they're in a bad mood. Don't do it when they're like stressed out and really busy. Maybe at the end of a day or something, or when they have a moment, a quiet moment to themselves. Maybe at the end of lunchtime, something like that, immediately after lunch or something like that. And just say like, hey, you got a moment? And if they say, sure, you say, listen, I've been doing this particular task for a while now. is this the way you want it? Is there something I should be doing different, that I could be doing different, that you would prefer? How am I doing? And just get that kind of feedback. Number one, you get points for asking for feedback without them coming and telling you, no, you're doing it wrong, I want it done differently, right? And secondly, you benefit from their feedback. If they say, yeah, you're doing a good job, but actually, if you could do this bit a little bit more like this, you say, okay, not a problem, right? Asking for that kind of feedback, that's good on multiple levels. Yeah. So there you go. Someone was asking me, like, did I already mention this? I don't think so. Someone left a question for me asking what are promising job fields? Presumably because they want to know what to study or what to go into. And that's a great question. The single biggest factor for success is the demand for whatever it is you're doing, right? You might think that the single biggest factor for success is how brilliant you are at what you do. It's not. It's how in demand the thing is you do. So if you go into, if you get a qualification for a certain thing, okay? Like computer science is a great example. A few years back, and I'm sure it's still the case now, but a few years back, at least where I am in Canada, in this specific part of Canada, we could not get enough computer science graduates. Okay, they're like, if you had a degree in computer science, you were like instantly employed. Okay, if you were top of the class, bottom of the class, whatever, you had a job within a very short amount of time because it was in high demand. So if you go into a growth area like that, that's the single biggest factor whether you're going to get a job and how much money you're going to make is the demand for it. Okay, it's more promising going into a growth area that's in high demand than it is going into some other area that's not really in hot demand, but you're trying to be brilliant at it. That's something that we've seen across the board. So for younger people that are like thinking, what should I study and what should I do for a career? It's great that you're asking this question rather than just doing a default thing without really thinking about it, just sort of coasting along, doing what your parents tell you to do. I want you to study this. And so you just, okay, whatever, you just do it, right? It's good that you're thinking like, okay, if I study this and this is what I do, what are my job prospects? Are they going to be good or not? And generally speaking, technical areas are in high demand, and they will be for the foreseeable future. Francisco says, when to negotiate with a company, is it better to ask for things in kind? I don't know what context you're referring to. Ask for things in kind? You mean like they pay you in product or something? Or it's like a tit for tat kind of thing? Yeah, if you have a bit more information, I don't understand exactly what you mean. Resume Master says, I would like to know how the process of setting goals for the performance review works, and if any goals are negotiable in terms of time frame or goals. Listen, Resume Master, there are a lot of people out there doing all kinds of idiotic things. And performance reviews they're a reflection of the quality of the manager. And some managers know what they're doing, and a lot of them don't. So consequently, when they do performance reviews of employees, like an annual performance review, if that's what you're referring to, there's no standard. People do them. There's a whole kaleidoscope of different ways you could do these. Some are much more effective than others. And some are absolutely out to lunch. They're completely ridiculous. And it's also a well-known thing within HR. People that have studied this stuff in the real world, like PhDs that got PhDs in business, and they go out and they study things like the effectiveness of recruitment and selection, the effectiveness of performance evaluations. They've concluded that things like performance evaluations, 90% of the time, they're absolutely useless and they do more harm than good. In theory, they can work very well. But in practice, when you look at how organizations are actually doing these, where the rubber meets the road, like at the end of the day, what's actually going on? There was a statistic I saw not too long ago in my country, in Canada. It was like some survey that some study had done. They found that something like around 90% of all companies said our performance review evaluation system does not work, and we need to get rid of it completely. That's what organizations said. Now, these are not the workers. These are the actual people at the top. Okay, they're saying it doesn't work. So, the assumption is that the workers hate it even more, okay? And they find it even less effective. The problem is that companies don't know what to replace it with. Like it's okay to just get rid of it, but you need to replace it with something. You can't just not have any way of evaluating your workforce, right? This is the problem. And most companies are just completely incompetent when it comes to this stuff, and they really don't, it's not a priority. They want to just be able to say that we have a system, we are making sure that people are maintaining some level of quality, right? That's kind of how these things go. It's generally something that most management scientists agree that does not work at all. In theory, you can get it to work, but not the way it's being implemented in something like 90% of all organizations. Okay. Okay, so like traditionally, what you're wanting to know how they do it. Traditionally, what they did was they would do a performance evaluation once a year. Okay, so your boss would sit down with you once a year. Like this is if you're in a career type job. Your boss would have a one-to-one meeting with you once per year. And the standard way of doing it was having something written down where the boss would present to you and they say, okay, this is what we think that you're doing well, and this is what we think that you need to improve on. Okay? And then there would be modern HR, they would require you to acknowledge that in writing. Like, they would say, here, please sign here. That says, I've told you this and you understand it and you agree and you're going to work on the things that we've outlined you need to work on. Okay. And then you would sign it, right? And that would go in your HR file. And one of the reasons for doing it once a year would be they would tie that to your compensation. Every year in a lot of jobs, not all jobs, but a lot of them, there would be some kind of annual cost of living increase. So your pay would go up by like 1% or 2%, something like that. And based on the results of your performance evaluation, okay, let's say it said, you're an okay employee, okay? Then they would, at the same meeting, they would give you your annual performance pay increase. They would say, okay, thank you for signing the paper. After this discussion, based on that, okay, here is your annual performance increase. Your pay is going up 2%, as of this date, right? Now, if it did not go well, if they said like, look, we have some serious concerns, we don't believe that your performance is what it should be. We would like to see a big improvement, in the next year with regard to this, your performance here, your performance there. Okay. Quite frankly, you're kind of sort of below average in terms of your performance. So based on that, you don't get an annual pay increase, or something like that. The two things would be done in the same meeting. And then that would be it for like another year. So the only time you really get to know how you're doing is you have to wait an entire year. It's stupid, right? That's the traditional way it was done. Now, people have tried all kinds of things since then. Some of them slightly more effective, some of them not. A lot of times it's just a vehicle. The way it ends up being used, it's a vehicle for the manager to promote the people that the manager likes and to get rid of the people the manager doesn't like. That's one way it's misused, and this is well known. Okay? It's not actually evaluating you. It's just sort of a way for them to sort of get rid of you or to promote you, which they were going to do anyway. But this makes it seem like it's an objective process where they've actually looked at all the elements of your performance and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, there's many, many problems with the system. Generally speaking, people that understand business and people that have good people skills, they can do proper performance evaluations. But a lot of people who don't do a terrible job. And it can become a political tool and it can be misused in a whole bunch of different ways. So I don't know if I really answered your question, but that's some of the elements going on here. But that's a great question. I used to teach some HR courses to recruiters and things, and that was an element of compensation. When you teach compensation, performance evaluation was one piece of it. GM says, do you have any advice on finding a career coach in the engineering field? Yeah. Well, listen, like I said earlier, the theme, I guess, of today's stream is that LinkedIn research, right? That the ability to use LinkedIn as a research tool to get these specific career questions answered. And I said two things. Number one, be able to do people searches for individuals that have certain job titles in your hometown or in your region. Okay. So you can see their profiles. That's the first way to do research. The second way, which can be a lot more effective, is to then reach out to those people and learn how to do an informational interview. Okay. So you have an interaction with these people. Traditionally, this would be in the form of a meeting. You would go meet them. You would say something like, look, I'd very much like to ask you a few questions. Could you spare me, say, half an hour of your valuable time? If you give me a sort of date, time, and place of your convenience, I will meet you there. And, a lot of times those would be like a coffee shop or something, it's near where they work or whatever. And you would be there and they would meet you and you can ask whatever questions you want. So if you are wanting a career coach in the engineering field, a great person you could maybe, a type of person you could connect with would be somebody in your hometown, okay, that is working in the engineering field and maybe even has a degree or some kind of educational qualification from the same place you do or the same place you want to get yours from, okay? So if you want to know like what doors it's going to open for you and how you get jobs and how the jobs are structured and what you need and all this kind of stuff, connect with that type of person and say like, hello, I'd very much like to get your expert opinion on, the engineering industry or the specific type of engineering industry. Would you be able to spare me, say, 30 minutes? And you interact with them. Like you can do a phone call, but they're really not very effective. It's much more effective if you meet somebody face to face. Okay? Or at the very least, you do something like what we're doing now, like almost like a video call where you can see the other person. And you're not getting one person as your coach. You could talk to a good variety of people, right? That way, what they say is more objective, right? If you ask them the same question, you get the same answer from 5 different people. it's probably valid, right? If you're just asking one person and they give you an answer, you don't know how accurate it is. It's better than nothing, but you don't know how accurate it really is. So that would be my advice. Okay. Failing that, I mean, if you have like social anxiety or agoraphobia or something, I mean, if you have an engineering degree or you're in the middle of getting an engineering degree, the first step, okay, just to be able to do something is to talk to one of your professors. Okay. If you're still in school, great. If you've graduated already, you should be able to go back and talk to your former teachers. You know, if they have a degree in engineering and you've got questions about the industry, you could ask them, or you could say like, look, could you connect me with somebody that might be able to give me some answers about how this job works in the real world, you know? And they say, yes, I have a friend. I have a very close colleague who's working in this company. I will do an online introduction to you. Okay, so that could work too. But I would recommend informational interviews. I mean, if you can do informational interviews, that is a skill that will help you in multiple ways your entire life, your entire career. You'll be able to get answers right from the source, no matter what question you're wondering. It's an incredible skill, and it's really not that hard. And once you do 2 or 3 of them, you realize it's really not rocket science, and you get a lot of confidence in being able to do them. So that's what I'd recommend. Leonardo says, would you recommend LinkedIn Premium? I did get LinkedIn Premium at some point in the past. Like I had it for maybe 6 months, but I ended up sort of canceling it because, I mean, it does give you, at least this was a few years ago, like it would allow you to do, you know, more searches or to give you more results or something. I mean, that can be useful. But in the end, I didn't find it worth paying for. They do have free trials. At least they used to. They're always trying to get you to like, you know, try LinkedIn Premium for free. So you get like a month free. So you could sign up for the free trial and not pay anything, but get all the features and then use that to do searches and like really use it during that month. You know, you could always do that. And then you cancel at the end of the month so you don't pay anything. I mean, you could always try that. But what I did, I mean, what a lot of people do is you build up a network primarily in your hometown. Like if you're in a city, you build up a network of people in that city. Or if you're not in a city, you're in sort of a region, you know, there's towns and things, you build up a network in that region. So a lot of the advanced search features of things like LinkedIn Premium, you don't really need because because you are connected to so many people, you know, and they're connected to like 2nd degree connections and 3rd degree connections. That's pretty much like all the professionals in your region in that industry or something. So, yeah, I mean, I just connected with mainly CEOs and other executives, like mainly CEOs and then maybe a few other executives, depending on who they were. And that gives you access to other people in their organizations, really, you know. So you can always do that. I have, like, not to always plug my course or whatever, but I go into how to do that specifically in my course, my Get Hired course. So, I mean, this is the Get Hired course right here. Where's my finger? Here. So if that's of any interest to you and you really want to go deeper in like how to do that, how it all works, you could check out that course. There's a link in the description. And since we're talking about it, I've already brought it up. I also have this course, which is a little bit more pertinent to what we're talking about today. This is a non-accredited MBA. You learn the same material as you do in a lot of university MBAs because you're using the same books. You're getting the same source material. Okay. The only difference is that with this, You don't have any tests or assignments or deadlines or anything. You can read it at your convenience. And you don't even have to go very deep. If you just want to skim it and get a feel for what that whole topic is about, you can do that. So because there's no evaluations, I have no way of knowing what you got out of the course. So, I mean, it's unaccredited, right? But for $100, I mean, it's teaching you the same material as, what you might pay $10,000 for in an accredited brick and mortar university program. I have a few videos on each of the topics, so I'm sort of guiding you through it, but it's basically a self-study thing. So if that's of any use to anybody, just check that out. Once again, link in description. It's called the $100 MBA. Just pertinent if you have an ambition. If you have an ambition to learn business, okay, it's basically what I wished I could have gotten when I was younger. I went and got the full-blown MBA, but I would have gotten something like this course if I could have done it. Okay, here we go with Weather Dude. My buddy there, Weather Dude. Is supervisory experience different in retail and a restaurant compared to a professional office setting? I am determining if a second job will help me receive supervisory experience. Yes, it is different, generally speaking. But, I mean, if you don't have any supervisory experience and you want to be able to say that you have, yeah, it's the same in principle, okay? Obviously, in a professional, like sort of where you're dealing with professionals, people that have a profession, they're lawyers or they're doctors or they're engineers or they're architects, people like that, people that have a profession or they have a skill trade, you're a boiler maker or a pipe fitter or, something like that. It's going to be a bit more high level, right? Generally, my understanding of like working in a restaurant and working in retail is you have people that don't know business and they don't have very strong interpersonal skills supervising other people. So it's very basic. And generally the standards of how you do it is not very good. They don't hold you to a very high standard. You see people losing their temper with other people and firing them. You see people being completely incapable of giving clear instructions and minimal training, things like this, right? But it's good if you don't have any supervisory experience. It's certainly valid if you get some supervisory experience in a second job, like a restaurant or retail, or even like customer service, right? You're supervising customer service people. Okay, whatever. That is valid supervisory experience. Okay. So yes, I mean, and speaking for myself, I would count that as valid supervisory experience. I wouldn't form the opinion that you are an expert supervisor, but I would count it as you do in fact have supervisory experience. Okay. The one sort of risk factor is that, and I'm speaking for myself here, because I've hired people and I've done skill assessments and things. My concern might be that if the only supervisory experience you had was in a restaurant setting, okay? If you were to come in and supervise professionals, I would not want you supervising them like you're running a restaurant, okay? That's not how you treat professionals generally, okay? So in order to give me a little assurances of the quality of your supervisory experience, in a job interview, I would sort of ask you, more behavioral questions. Like, tell me about a time you had a problem with an employee. Tell me about a time when an employee required extra training and, it was, you had to provide additional training. Or tell me about a time where there was a language barrier with somebody you're supervising. Or tell me about a time, you had to deal with insubordination, like stuff like this, right? I would ask you those types of questions to assess whether you in fact knew how to supervise someone in a professional setting. Okay? And those are things that you can learn. You can learn it from a book. You can learn it from asking people. So, you know what I mean? So if you have supervisory experience and you pass those kinds of questions, then yeah, I think that would qualify you. That would be a reasonable assessment, I think. Sir, I am from Myanmar. Am I saying that right? Asia. I want to build a life and have a job in the USA. Can I use LinkedIn to apply for jobs abroad? Thank you for answering. Yes, you can. I don't know how effective that is. First of all, I'm not in the United States, so I'm not an expert on how to get hired in the United States specifically. Yeah, you can do that. They have some pretty funky immigration stuff to sort of hoops you got to jump through. I don't know all the details, but I would talk to somebody who understands American immigration, preferably somebody in the USA that knows that, and just pick their brain about it. Get the lowdown. I mean, you can apply for jobs on LinkedIn. You could be anywhere in the world and you can apply for a job to anywhere in the world using LinkedIn. I'm just not sure how effective it is depending on your circumstances and what you're applying for. Okay, so I would ask somebody in the specific industry that you're talking about and in the specific country that you're applying to. That's where I would look for that information. You're absolutely welcome, Leonardo. Something I was going to talk about today was the role of the CFO. I'm not sure if anybody's interested in that, but I think it's kind of a cool topic. Someone was asking about IT and the CIO and what their role is. Another thing that pretty much almost every organization is going to have is some form of CFO, Chief Financial Officer. I need more Red Bull. That's the problem. There we go. And for those of you in an accounting field, or those of you that are looking to one day have your own business, or even have a side hustle of some kind, but mostly having your own business, whether it's a startup, whether it's a small business, or a franchise, this is going to be important. But I have a question here. So I'm going to take your questions over sort of my stuff I was going to originally talk about. Leonardo says, as an engineer, how hard is it to get a job position in Canada? Like relative to what? I'm not sure. I mean, I know people get jobs in Canada in the engineering field from other positions. But what you would have to look at would be, depending where in the world you're coming from, is your degree recognized in Canada? That's the big question. That's probably the number one question I think anybody would have. If you're changing countries to get a job, or that's what your goal is your qualification recognized in that country, or is it not? Or is it partially recognized, meaning that they recognize it, but you have to take supplementary tests and maybe more training for it to be recognized as valid? I mean, I know far more about hiring technicians than I do engineers that come from different countries. And I remember for technicians, it was hit and miss. What some companies would do is, depending where in the world you're coming from, some credentials are recognized here and some aren't. So there are some companies that what they do, and I was kind of a part of this, is you would get their qualifications and it would be written in a language you didn't understand. And, then you didn't know what, like if someone had that qualification, what specifically did they know? You see, like that was the problem. So if you're hiring a technician to do a certain type of work, we really didn't know if the person with this foreign qualification knew about that specific work or not. And some companies, what they would do, including mine, is we would take a chance on people. We would sort of hire them for cheap, okay, because they were risky. And some of them would prove to be very qualified, highly qualified people that could just step into the job and they knew their stuff. Others, despite having a qualification in their own country, we found that when we hired them and sort of got them to do this work, they didn't know anything. So it was very hit and miss. So I know there are companies that do that, at least for technicians. I'm assuming some will do that for engineering too, depending on what type of work it is. If you are doing certain types of work where you were, like, say you're building bridges and you have to stamp the plans and all this kind of stuff. I mean, you have to be approved by whatever engineering governing body here, so that when you stamp plans, it's certified, right? You have your seal and you can certify things. You can't have someone that comes from another country that has a degree in their country, but lo and behold, they don't know how to do a certain type of work. They get a job in that area, they stamp plans to build a bridge or something, the bridge falls down, people die, right? So your qualification for some areas has to be recognized. So usually it's there's a path. As I understand it, for most things, there's a path to having it be recognized. Okay? So maybe when you sort of just arrive, it may not be recognized initially. You maybe be able to get some work. It doesn't pay you as much, but, and based on that, you get references and this sort of stuff. And then you can add in some training and things to maybe get your certificate recognized, your certification recognized. And then you can command a higher pay as like a fully qualified, recognized, certified engineer. But get the specifics. Obviously, I'm not talking, about details here. This is just a very general kind of thing. Once again, networking, informational interviews, that will give you the specific answers for your situation. So once again, I mean, the theme of this is coming back to like networking. Networking is very, very useful. It's an enabler. Well, I think we've reached the end of the questions here. We got 25 people here. I want to thank everyone for being here. It's flattering that you are interested in listening to me drone on about things. Look, that even went up. 27 people. Thank you. I covered a lot of what I was doing. But no, what I started off talking about in the beginning of the stream was, inflation, and how, times like right now where inflation is going up, and certainly in North America and a lot of other countries, having a side hustle sort of insulates you against a lot of that, right? Because your income is not fixed. So if your expenses go up, if your expenses are variable, which they are, for pretty much everybody, if your revenue is also variable, that allows you to be insulated. It's almost like what financial services companies do when lenders, when they sell you a loan, they say your interest rate, they don't give you a fixed number a lot of times. If you have a variable interest rate, they say, look, our interest rate is locked off of this variable floating amount, like usually prime or LIBOR or something like that. So whatever that happens to be, whatever the interest rates happen to be, with inflation, whatever, we just add 2% and that's the interest rate we charge you. So they're insulated against that risk of variable interest rates. or inflation. They're insulated against it because whatever it is, they just charge 2% more, right? So imagine if your income was like that. Whatever your expenses are, whatever, you're paying based on interest rates and inflation and all that kind of stuff, you're making, money that goes up according to the amount of inflation you get. They sort of go like this. I can't really do this. I'm looking at myself, but they sort of do that, right? Because I know that's a big concern to a lot of people right now, So for that reason, I regard, being self-employed or having your own business as the outcome, the eventual ending place of this whole career question, of how to get a job. Because at the end of the day, you're working for somebody else and you're generating more wealth than they're paying you, right? That's how companies work. Okay. So the great thing about having a variable pay, because you are the owner of something, the great thing about that is that you get to keep all the money. You're not paying out over 50% of it to somebody else, right? That's the penalty for not knowing business. That's how I see it. You have technical skills, so you go work for somebody else. They handle the business side, and you just do the technical work. But because you leave the business side up to them, they take most of the money, right? They're the ones that take the risk. They're the ones that know what's going on, right? And if they fail, you lose your job. And if they succeed, they keep all the profit. They pay you the fixed compensation they said they would, but unbeknownst to you, they've made this much, right? So they pay you this much, like they said, and then they keep all the rest for themselves. That's the penalty for you not understanding business yourself. Hypothetically, if you could set yourself up doing the same type of work, but working for yourself, and you're generating, let's say, this much, then you keep this much. It's more than this, right? I mean, obviously there's more to it, but that's the general idea, The best thing I ever did in my career was learn business. I mean, I didn't start off as a business guy. I started off as an engineer. And I tacked those business skills on after like 10 years. I got formal qualifications. But I was having to learn business by being in charge of things. And I made a lot of mistakes. Let me tell you, I made a lot of mistakes playing in the world of business without any formal business training. So that's why I recommend it to people. Mark says, advice about preparing for management consulting interviews. So what does that mean? You're getting a job as a management consultant? Is that what you're talking about? If that's what you're talking about, look, you need to learn what management consulting, whatever the firms are that you're interviewing with, what they care about. And a lot of times it's like client relations, right? That's a big part of it. And understanding the general business concerns of the client and understanding that industry. I'm not sure about like sort of entry-level management consulting in large firms, exactly what the requirements are. But I mean, it might be sort of like a business analyst, something like that. But to do sort of higher level, management consulting, you need to understand the mentality of the owners of those businesses, like what their concerns are, how they think. So the more you can do to sort of get that, the better. But like I said, coming back to the central theme here, do informational interviews with people in those types of companies. Go and get an informational interview with the CEO. When I say this, people freak out and they go, no, that's absolutely impossible. It's unrealistic. Well, I've done hundreds of them. It's not as hard as you think. All you got to do is approach them the right way, professionally, politely. They're going to look up your LinkedIn profile. If you contact them over LinkedIn, if that's the tool you're using, they're going to look at like, who is this person contacting me? And if it looks fine, it looks like, oh, okay, this is this person. There's no red flags. You know, you can do this. And you get information right from the source. Okay? People down here can't tell you anything. People in the middle are too busy to tell you anything. People up here, they're the ones that A, have the time to deal with you. B, it's part of their job to deal with you. And C, they can tell you how things go. Min says something very nice. Sir, your suggestions are inspirational. Could you give us life suggestions? Look, you're doing the thing that I would recommend most, which is self-improvement. Okay? This is what I did not do the first 10 years of my career. Go out there and see what you're missing, see what gaps there are in your knowledge. You know, it took me a long time to figure out that, you know, if you want to succeed with technical skills, what really helps is tacking on business skills. So learn all you can. Don't just learn from one source. Don't just listen to me. Listen to like several different sources, okay? Coming from different perspectives. Okay? Then, after you've done a little bit of that, listening to advice, then go out and try things. Don't just like learn everything you've learned by listening to people talk about it. Go and try things. Learn things through experience. Okay? You want to learn networking? Listen to people in the beginning, get some ideas, and then go out and do it. Try it. Okay? When you try something for the first time, like learning a musical instrument or doing a sport, you're not good in the beginning, but you'll never get good if you don't go through that sort of beginner period of trying it yourself. You can't just sit and watch videos of somebody doing a sport. You have to go out and try and play the sport, right? A lot of people, they're stuck in that phase of they just watch videos of the sport, thinking, I should do that someday, right? So that's kind of a big part of it. Okay, so listen to people, but then go out and try things. Okay, now, if you're dealing with like business, you know, like having your own business, when you go out and try things, don't spend a ton of money. Don't do anything that's going to like, you know, burn bridges for you. Like I've seen people that they want to go out and they start a company and they've got some bad advice and people say, borrow as much money as you can and then spend it all on, you know, this and then, you know, so they try their first attempt to start a company. They spend something like $200,000 of money of their own and that they've borrowed from everybody. And then it fails and then they can't pay it back. And then that's it. They can't try anything else because they now have to pay off that money and it might take them years. So manage the risk. You know, if you're just risking feeling like a fool and feeling awkward, I mean, that's not fun, but you can recover from that, you know? But don't like spend $1 million trying, like on the first attempt, trying something. Okay, you got to manage the risk. I'm falling behind in the feed here. Just give me a second. Okay. Okay, where did I leave off? Librarian, I missed it. Great start in the morning and afternoon. If you're talking to me, thank you. That's great. Leonardo, but isn't it too much uncertainty to work for oneself? Well, look, that's a great question. I mean, is it? Do you know of anybody that's independent, like the working for themselves? I mean, think of all the YouTubers out there for a start. We're on YouTube. I like to use YouTube as an example when I'm on YouTube because we're all familiar with it, right? I mean, how much does it cost to start a YouTube channel? And how much money can you make? You know, think of any other type of business. Don't think of like high risk tech startups. Think of like traditional businesses. opening a construction company, opening, like, I don't know, if you're a little kid and you mow lawns, you know, or something, or like where I'm in Canada, it snows in the winter. You shovel snow for money. You know, you can be a little kid and you can make money. All you need is a shovel and you can start making money. Right? I mean, that's a business. And then it teaches you everything you need to do to be successful. You need how to deal with customers, how to get the word out that you're offering this service, how to get it out to the right people, finding out who are the right people, how much money to charge, right? I mean, just something very small like that. It's like it has all the essentials that you need to learn to be successful. And then when you're older, if you have a degree in computer science or whatever you've got, then it's like, okay, how can I sell my services there? Right? You know? The thing is, everything career-wise is risky. You know, you're right. Is it not risky to be in business for oneself? Yes, it is. It's also risky to get a job because they could fire you at any moment, right? That feeling of, oh crap, my job is over. I have no more money coming in. I have to pay rent. I have to pay for food. What am I going to do? That's not fun either, right? That could happen. I mean, not to be negative. I mean, that technically could happen at any moment to everyone who has a regular job. So, I mean, you're not shielded from the risk. You know, it's still there. The only difference is that you're not depending on someone else. Okay. Now, there are advantages to getting a traditional job in maybe a large organization. Okay. One of the advantages is you don't need to know business. They know business. Presumably, they're making money. And they're going to spend some of it paying for your services, right? The flip side is that you're actually generating way more money for them than they're paying you. Okay, so they're skimming like 70% of your pay from you. Okay, that's usually what's going on across the board in every industry. Okay, so there's risk associated with everything. Now the question is, based on what you know and what your goals are, what's a better fit for you? Now, for a lot of people, it might be working in traditional jobs for the first half of your career and then going out on your own. Now that you've learned everything there is to learn, you know what you're doing in your industry, you know how it all works, and you have a lot of hard experience to match your skills. You know, you tack on some business skills, you tack on some interpersonal skills. You could then be your own boss. You could work as hard as you want, and the harder you work, the more money you make. Right? For some people, that's good. For other people, that's not really what they're interested in, and that's fine. Where am I here? Okay, we got Dan. Dan has written several things here. Question. In other videos, you suggest to answer the question, how do you handle stress? Yeah, I'm not talking about job interviews in this. Sorry, Dan. However, many companies ask for details. Could you please be specific about this scenario? Well, listen, I have videos on how to do that specifically. I also have an entire live stream on how do you handle stress. But I'll read what you say here. Let's see. How do you handle stress? Something simple. However, many companies ask for details. They just won't stop at that. They want to know the details. Yeah, I know. They're interviewers. Listen, just because they ask you a question doesn't mean you have to answer. And this is how a lot of people think. You know, for example, someone may say, tell me how much money you make. And you say, no, that's personal information. I'd rather not give that out. And they say, yeah, I understand that, but we need to know how much money you make. And then people, oh, okay, well, I make this much. It's like, that's silly. That's silly. Just because they ask again doesn't mean that they have the right to know. Now, if you're a skillful interviewer, you know that by persisting with a question, for some people, you can break down the barrier and get them to, in fact, tell you something they don't want to tell you, okay? But it's still wrong of the candidate to buckle to that kind of pressure. Just because they ask you over and over again doesn't mean that you should suddenly tell them, you know? So if they say, like, how much money do you make? You say, oh, I actually don't reveal that as a matter of policy. You know, that's personal information. They say, oh yeah, well listen, we still need to know how much money you make. And say, no, I understand. But like I said, I don't reveal that. That's personal confidential information. You know. And then if they persist again, they say, like, look, you know, like, I talk to people every day. I always ask this question. They always have to tell me. I can't move you to the next step of the process unless you tell me this. Now, you know that that's a lie, okay? Because they are not entitled to this information by law, okay? And if you give this information, it's going to make you look bad. It'll be the reason why they probably eliminate you. So you say, look, I'm very sorry. I don't mean to be difficult, but I just can't reveal that information. You know, I'm sorry if that's a showstopper. I'm sorry if that's not what you want to hear, but there it is. You know, that's all I can tell you. I'm sorry, right? You just don't buckle to it. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be forceful. You can smile. You can say, like, I'm terribly sorry. I don't mean to be difficult, but unfortunately, I can't say that. You know, I'm sure you understand. You know, I can't give out any confidential information like salary or my credit card or my social insurance number. You know, that's just how it goes. I'm afraid. So, okay. So you don't have to buckle to that. People are used to school. This is the problem. When you spend a lot of your life in the educational system teaches people to conform. It teaches people to ask permission first. And it teaches people that if someone in authority tells you to do something, you better do it. Okay? Now, what happens is you then go to a job interview and there's someone in a seeming position of authority telling you, you need to give me the answer to this question. So our conditioning makes us feel like, oh, I'd better tell them because they might get upset if I don't. The problem is if you do tell them what they want to know, it's bad for you, okay? That's the problem. And if companies put like an extreme amount of pressure on you, they're signaling that it's a bad place to work. If that's how they're talking to you in a job interview, you can imagine how they're going to talk to you when you're on the job, okay? And that might not be a place you want to be. So that's what I'll say about that. You know, this concern that, oh no, if I don't tell them, they might ask me again. You know, that's not a concern. This is where interviewing skills come into play. If you want to work on this, this is where you do mock interviews with a friend or family member, okay, to work on things like this. Okay, we're going back into job interview stuff. How to handle a situation where you're asked to describe what's your biggest project you worked on. I don't know. Maybe describe the biggest project you worked on. That would probably be the answer. When you feel like you didn't, even if you have 20 years of experience, didn't? I'm sorry. But hopefully that answers your questions. I mean, like, listen, these are not real. I don't want to say they're not real concerns because they are real concerns, but it's a smokescreen, okay? Just because they ask you, just because they put pressure on you, part of interviewing. Like, listen, how successful would you be at playing something like poker, like a card game for money, if the other person said, look, I really need to see your cards? And you said, no, I'm not going to show you my cards. And he said, yeah, but listen, I need to see your cards. And you go, oh, okay, here's my cards, right? It's like, how successful would you be? You wouldn't be successful, right? So don't worry about it. It's just, they're just They're just saying these things as an artificial way to put pressure on you to tell them something that they have no right to know. If you don't want to tell them, you don't have to tell them. Period. And if they want something that's going to make you look bad, right? Because they're judging you on some silly, superficial thing, right? Like, you sit down at a job interview and the first thing they say is, why'd you leave your last job? Now, let's say you were fired, okay? But the problem is, if you start off the interview by saying, oh, I was fired from my last job, most interviewers are going to sort of eliminate you right there and then. Without even going any further, already, this person's got a red flag? No, not worth my time to investigate further. I'm already interviewing 10 other people. No, I'm going to eliminate this person. That's a big red flag, right? You could be the most brilliant person ever. You could be the best person for the job they've ever seen. But if they're going to judge you on something as stupid as that, you don't want to reveal it. And they don't have the right to make you reveal it. You know? You're not in the court of law. EGR says, if relocating out of state for an engineering type job, should I be concerned that I'm not professionally licensed to practice in the state? Yeah, that's very important. While there, but only have 6 months. I can get the license while there, but only have 6 months. Well, yes, you should be concerned. I mean, it's good that you know this, but yes, this is very important. I mean, if you're not licensed to practice engineering in the place where you're going to be practicing engineering, obviously that's important. So yeah, that would be priority one, I would assume, if you get the job or if it's your ambition to get the job. Oh, there's even more. I didn't see all the rest. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I need to hurry up with my answers here. What are we doing here? So librarian wrecker? I'll be hitting 1 year at the service desk company in August. I'm currently on an apprenticeship, which will be completed near the end of this year. How should I negotiate a better salary? Well, I've got a 1-hour video on salary negotiation. Short answer is negotiation is all about having options, okay? You have other options, right? If you only have one option, which is to work there or be unemployed, you don't really have much power to negotiate, because whatever you say, I need this, they'll just say no, right? I mean, like how would you get them to want to pay you more? The other aspect here is that if you're already working there, right? But then you turn around and say, no, this is not good enough. I need more money, or whatever it is you need. I need more vacation. I need more whatever. They say, well, no, you're sort of reneging on your agreement in a way, right? Because you agreed to work for us for this amount of money. Now you're turning around saying it's not good enough. You know, I now have to reevaluate my labor situation. You know, if you want more and you claim that if I don't give it to you, presumably you're going to leave. That's what the implication is. If I don't want to give it to you, I'm assuming you're going to leave. If I don't give it to you, I'm assuming you're going to not be happy making the money you're currently making, which would probably be a disgruntled employee who's probably fixing to leave. So why would I tolerate that when I could just hire a new person instead that is really happy with the compensation I'm paying, right? This is the problem. So in order to renegotiate, you have to have options. You have to have the ability to say, okay, if these people say no, then here's what I'm going to do. Okay? Negotiation is not persuasion. Negotiation is understanding what you're going to do based on what other people do. Okay? That's what it is. A lot of people don't realize that. Okay, so the way to have power, the ability to negotiate, is to have options. Say like, look, I got a job offer from this other company. They're going to pay me X. So you're paying me X minus 10. I'm going to at least need you to match it. Right? And then if they say no, you're like, okay, see ya. And then you've got a job where you're making X, right? You're making more money. So it's a win-win for you. Wherever you end up, whatever they say, you're going to come out on top, right? So the only time you can really negotiate is when you get options, alternate options for yourself. The more options, the more power. Okay, that's how this stuff works. Dan says, by the way, I'd like to respond how well in every video. You're awesome. Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're getting value from me droning on in a scattered way about random topics. That's very nice of you to say. GM, what's the typical time frame for a company to respond to questions about the offer of employment? Okay, well, obviously it's going to vary, but I would say within a week, okay? Like if you're waiting weeks for them to get back to you, that is probably not going well. Okay, it's still like there might be mitigating circumstances. Maybe the boss just went on vacation. You know, I mean, it is possible that it's okay. But generally speaking, that's not a good sign. Okay, if you're dealing with an offer of employment, it should be a couple of days to get a response, would be reasonable. What Bill says, in other words, trust the process. And also small steps are the safest. Sometimes it might not even be more profitable than being just an employee. Well, yeah, but it depends on your abilities. If you know what you're doing, you can succeed. And if you don't know what you're doing, you won't succeed. It's like anything else. Do you have advice on starting on a new job to be successful? Like, okay, like you want to start the job and be successful in the job? Yeah. Get a good relationship with your immediate supervisor and get as much feedback as you can without pestering them. Get them to give you feedback. Okay? How am I doing? Is this, here, I did this thing that you asked for. Is this the way you wanted it to be done? See what they say. Would you prefer in future that I do it this other way? Would that be better for you? See what they say. Get general feedback. How am I doing? Is there something else you would like to see me doing that other than what I am doing? Is this good enough? Like just stuff like that. Get that. Like once a week, if you could have like a conversation with your immediate boss about how you're doing in general. And be very receptive, be very friendly, very easy for them to talk to you and give you candid advice. And if they say like, I'd prefer that you do it this other way, you say, sure, not a problem. If you have any other suggestions, let me know, because I need feedback to be able to sort of give you guys what you want. Okay. So that's generally the way to be successful. Okay. Good communication and get feedback. Oh, here we go. Librarian. What was it like for you starting up this YouTube channel? How did you scale it to be monetized? Let's see. How can I summarize this? Look, my experience in life is that sort of one thing leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another. Okay. And so I took a teaching job, like just on the side. I did contract teaching at a university in their business and HR programs. And like I've talked about before, I'm not a teacher. I have no teaching credentials whatsoever. I have no interest in being a teacher, but I just thought, this is kind of an extension of some of the public speaking I've done in my previous roles as an executive. And so like sort of executive, like technical role, to being an executive, to doing public speaking, to doing teaching. And then what I did was I was teaching classes on various HR topics, things like compensation. And I had told my students how to answer some job interview questions. And I noticed that they, when I started talking about that topic, their ears perked up. They were like, all of a sudden they were interested. They were a lot more interested in hearing about that than what the subject of the classes were a lot of times. So, I would talk about how to pass job interviews and stuff. And I got so sick and tired of sort of answering the same questions over and over and over again. I had this idea that I would do some videos, and then I'd put them up on YouTube and I'd refer my students to them. I'd say, look, go check out these videos. If you're interested in, learning how to answer this question or whatever, or at least my advice on how to answer the question, go check out this YouTube channel, right? So that's how it started. And it just sort of went from there. I know it's a cliche, but you just have to do something that people like. That's the only thing you have to worry about. Everything else takes care of itself. So, like what you were asking for about like monetization and how to get, more expert, that all takes care of itself if you create something that people like. Okay? The only challenge you really have in business, really, the only big challenge you have is creating something that people will like. Okay? If you're doing a typical business, it's creating something people will pay for. Okay? That's really not that hard. Go, like when we used to have the yellow pages, like the yellow pages, you guys might not have heard of it depending on how old you are, but it's like sort of a list of all the businesses, right? In your hometown. You open it and you look up like, I don't know, gardening, right? And you go under G and here's all the gardening companies, right? It's like, look, here's people making money at this. You want to know what to do to make money? Start a gardening company. Like, look up like, something you're interested in. Here's a company in your hometown making money doing this. Okay? Now, all you have to do, like if you think that you could do a good job doing that, okay? What are the odds that these people are geniuses that have figured out stuff that you'll never be able to figure out? Probably pretty slim, okay? So you might be able to make some money doing that. Now, if you can do it well, if you've like seen other people do this, say you've looked at other companies that do gardening and they sell gardening supplies or whatever, and you think, you know what, this store sucks. I could do a better job. Why don't you do it this way? Why don't you do it that way? As a customer, I would like to see this. I would pay for this, but you're not providing it. Okay? That's sort of where it starts. Okay? Now, obviously there's a lot more details, right? But that's where it starts, okay? Some businesses are very easy to start up, like a YouTube channel would be very easy to start up. A HR company, very easy to start up. Anything that just needs like a desk, a computer, and a phone is very easy to start up. Like let's say you have a law degree, okay? And you're trying to get a job in a law firm, Now, I don't know how the law business is regulated in all these different countries, but if you have the skills, and let's say you're terrible at passing a job interview. They want to see experience and you don't have experience. Well, while you're unemployed, you've got a phone, you've got a desk, you've got a computer. Do you need anything else to be a lawyer other than possibly a suit and a briefcase? Maybe try starting up something on your own while you're unemployed. I mean, what have you got to lose, really? It doesn't take much money. And at the end of the day, you might even be able to put it on your resume and say, like, look, I have experience. Let's say you get a client. It might not be glamorous. It might not be, you might not make your first $1 million off it, but you got something. now you have options. You could either put this on your resume and say, look, I've got hard experience being a lawyer. Not only have I done the legal work, but I've also marketed myself. I have attracted a client and I've put myself in business for it. I've drummed up business as a lawyer. Okay. So I'm showing my skills. So you could go that route, or you could just continue. Maybe you get a second client and a third and a fourth and a 30th. And next thing you know, you're making as much money as you would working in a law firm. You know? So one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, right? Some businesses are very easy to start up. If you feel that you could do a better job than something you see, and you have a passion to do that, and you have a conviction to do it, that might be the seeds of something you can do. Other businesses, it's not really possible to start up because they require a lot of money. It's called initial capital outlay. You have to spend a lot of money to get into that business. Like it's hard to drill for oil on your own, right? You just don't have enough money to pay for all the stuff that would start that up, right? So that's a bit of a different thing. But some businesses are very, very easy to start and very cheap. And if you're between jobs anyway, and you have the luxury of being able to try a few things, even if it's just to put something on your resume, that can be a valid option for a lot of people, you know? And sometimes that's how great things begin. Not always, but sometimes there's a lot of people making it. Don't take my advice on this. Go and do your own research in whatever area you are. In some industries, there's a lot of people going out on their own. You know, any service type business, you know, if people are talking about engineering, like civil engineering. I mean, to be a civil engineer, what do you need? Well, you need a computer and a desk and a phone, right? Maybe you need to install CAD on your computer, right? If you already are certified to work, that's all you need, right? So, I mean, look, some of you guys are starting out in your careers, you know, and that's fine. You know, get a job in a traditional job, and that's cool. But maybe 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, just remember this, okay? It frees you from depending on other people to make money. There's a company standing between you and the money. And they're like a big sort of gatekeeper, and they like, behind them is this mountain of cash that they're making. And they're saying, okay, they're taking a little bit out and they're giving a little bit to you. Here you go. Here's your share, right? And then they treat you like crap, and then they lay you off. There's always that risk, right? If you're someone you can generate value for a customer, if you can do something that someone would pay for, if you're a little bit advanced in your career, maybe you should ask yourself, do I really need them for the rest of my life? Just sort of take a little bit of money out and give it to me, and I'm just thankful to get it. Depending on what you're doing, maybe yes, maybe no. Sorry, I've completely lost track of this feed here. I didn't really talk about my YouTube. Yeah, I guess I sort of did. I talked about my YouTube channel. No, the rest is details. If you can make something that people see value in, whatever that is, selling services, making a product, you know, whatever. You know, do you really need somebody else's permission, you know, to do it? No, you don't. It can be very hard to leave a good paying job to take a risk on doing something on your own, okay? The way I did my consulting thing was I tried to minimize the risk. I was working with a lot of clients anyway, and my company was sort of undergoing some changes, and I just said, like, look, you know, do we really have to do this? I mean, there's some uncertainty here. I'm leaving the company. Would you still want to work with me if I was an independent? And some people said yes. So I said, great, and let's do that then. So depending on your situation. But if you know business and you see these opportunities, you know what it takes. I mean, you combine that with networking and you can achieve some great things. Bill, do you like Shark Tank? I haven't really watched it that much. I've seen it, but it's too show busy for me. It's not really, I don't know, what I saw, it wasn't really focusing on business that much. It was focusing more on spectacle for an audience. But I know you're joking. Mohammed says, I majored in civil engineering. How can I build my business in infrastructure work? Well, like I said, the way to find that out is to network, is to get on LinkedIn and do a search in your hometown for people that have their own civil engineering business and talk to them. Okay. Or just talk to civil engineers, period, even if they are working in large organizations, or talk to people in other types of engineering that are on their own and get all that information. And that'll give you the answer. Any advice to find your passion? I don't think I have one. Don't force it. I mean, in my experience, passion is not something you can just summon up. It has to come on its own. It's not something you can force. Just like you can't control your feelings. Like if you just feel bored or angry or sad, you have no control over that. It just happens, right? In my opinion, I'm not a professional psychologist or anything, but passion is the same. You can't force it. You can't artificially force yourself to be passionate in something. You just have to wait till it happens. If you hear something or you see something that you go, ooh, that's interesting. That is interesting. And you want to learn more about it, then maybe learn more about it. Like let yourself get swept up in it. If that doesn't happen, don't feel guilty about it. You have no control. Okay. I mean, I remember when I was younger, I got burnt out in university doing engineering. I got my degree, but I remember my third year, I think I fried my brain. I really did. And I just couldn't summon up any more passion to learn engineering. I was just fried. Now, I forced myself and I finished it and I got my degree. But when I started the degree, I was passionate to learn this stuff. It was exciting. As a kid, I would play with electronics and build circuits and things like this. And I wanted to learn electrical engineering. But after 3 years of learning math and science and everything but how to design circuits, there was no creative element. I just got a little fried, and it was very intense work too. I mean, engineering is no picnic. And it just happens, and I just couldn't get interested in it again. And I felt guilty about that because it's I wanted to do this. Why have I lost interest in this? You have no control over that stuff. Okay. Probably one thing maybe you can do indirectly is not sort of shut yourself into your room and not see anything, right? Go out and surf the internet, read books, talk to people, whatever, get exposure to things. So the odds of something inspirational coming your way goes up, right? But I don't think you can really do much else. Just wait for it. And sometimes maybe like me, you might be just burnt out. I'm sure everybody here has something that you enjoy doing. You enjoy playing a sport. You enjoy watching movies. You enjoy hanging out with your friends. You enjoy something, right? If you did nothing but that 18 hours a day for a couple of weeks, as much as you enjoy it, you would probably start to get burned out and you would lose the passion for it. right? You'd start to get so tired of it, you know? So that can happen too. And I mean, don't feel guilty. It's just a normal human reaction to your situation. Okay. So, yeah, you know, and I mean, when I was in my 20s, I didn't give a rat's ass about business. That was like a boring thing, right? I was interested in much more exciting things that you do when you're younger, you know? And, it was only in my 30s that it's like suddenly business got exciting. It was like, whoa, that's really cool. I never felt like that before. It was just this thing you never thought about. So yeah, maybe sometimes it's like that. You know, don't worry about it. Just sort of go with. I know this sounds so cliched, but just go with how you feel. You have no control over how you feel, so don't beat yourself up over it. Okay. Priv Saul says, are there any additional areas of your background that you would like to briefly summarize that aligns to the role? Like, is this a job interview question? You're sort of, you know. I don't think I can really explain that. I mean, it's just self-evident. Just answer it. And everybody's going to have a different answer to that. Tell me about your current, most recent experience and how it relates to the responsibilities identified in the job description. You see, we're getting into how to pass a job interview, and that's not what this stream is about. How do we handle what? How do we handle this via email? Still apply? 1 minute rule. What's the 1 minute rule? Like you don't want to talk for more than 1 minute? But if you're doing it over email, yeah, well, listen. Short answer, speak to the requirements of the job. They list the requirements. You speak to the requirements. That's what you tell them. That's what they want to hear. Yeah. So there you go. Anyway, we've hit the 2-hour mark. I want to thank you guys. There's 27 people here. You guys are awesome. And just to reiterate, if you're looking for something to learn business, like I've already shown, there's always this. Okay, link in the description. You learn everything you would learn in an MBA for $100. Do it at your own pace. Go as deep as you want, or not. I designed the course where I walk you through an MBA, all the different areas. I add some insights of my own to it, but it's a self-study thing, and you get to do, you get the same source material, the textbooks, as you would in some of the top MBAs from around the world, like in Harvard, for example. You use the same source material. So if that's of any interest to you, check out the link in the description. And going forward, I'm going to be doing these streams. I'm doing them on Sundays and on Wednesdays. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the business discussion, let's talk business. I'm going to move that to Sundays. And on Wednesdays, I'm going to do the how to get a job, how to pass a job interview live stream. So I sense that more people on the weekend are interested in business. More people through the week are interested in how to get a job. So that's what I think I'll be doing going forward. And like I said in the beginning, this stream will be archived. It's going to move over to my second channel, The Company's Expert 2. So if you aren't subscribed to The Company's Expert 2, go there and subscribe. And then you can see this stream and all the others that I've been doing. So I just want to read the last few things here. Is entrepreneurship worth the risk? Yes, if you do it properly. Okay, if you manage the risk, it is worth it, but it has risk. If you try to jump into entrepreneurship, you don't have a clue what you're doing, and you do it in kind of a foolish way, you spend a lot of money on it on your first attempt, that's not good. You can screw up your life or do some damage that way. So if you go about it in a smart way, it can be a really awesome thing, okay? I don't have money and support to start a business. Well, okay, fair enough. If it's something you want to do, though, like I said, you don't really need money. You need effort and time. Okay? Like, think of it like starting a YouTube channel. It costs nothing, but it does take effort and time. Okay? Any business that is going to replace your income will take effort and a little bit of time. Okay? Yeah, have a good day. So thank you to Priv, Saul, Leonardo, Min. Min says, thank you very much for doing this live section. Still supporting you in the future. Thank you, Min. Johnny Walker. No, thank you, sir. Johnny Walker, I've seen you before. Thanks for being a repeat person on my streams. Dan, older than it should. I think I got banned. Did you? I can see you, so I don't think you're banned. Not by me, anyway. Private Saul. I have an email, but that's for business inquiries. And Dan B. I just logged on. Well, Dan, you are here for the end. Thank you for being here. And you can get a replay of the stream on my second channel, The Company's Ep.2. Thanks, everyone. I wish you nothing but success. I will be back with another episode of Let's Talk Business. Not this Sunday, but next Sunday. Thanks so much. Take care, and I will see you around.